how did that all unfold from your vantage point? I mean, a lot of guys took 2 there, and they were going to need to get out pretty fast, I guess, and have clean air if that was going to work. And I guess probably some of them lost their buffer too when that first wreck happened, so that kind of hurt their cause.
Correct.
But how did that unfold from your perspective and what you guys were trying to do?
Yeah, I knew a few would take 2, meaning I like for sure the 22, right? Like he's going to do that play. He hasn't been good enough all day to win the race any other way. So that's throw it up there, hope that we get multiple cautions and he doesn't have to do anything more than a short stint. I considered it because I probably had the freshest lefts, right? Because I'd almost even split the stint before. But typically here, and the fall off we had today, I only thought 2 were going to be good for at most 8 to 10 laps. Like if you've looked historically, like when guys have taken 2, they've led 5, 6 laps, and that's, call it 2, 3 guys do it. Would we have 4, I think, there do it? So when we were, getting ready to fire off with 22, 23 laps or whatever, I thought it would be fun. I thought it was just a matter of, did I think we were going to necessarily have the speed to get from where we were in P8, right? They're not necessarily, but that kind of was a circumstance of the previous pit stop and how everything happened when we cycled back further. So you were kind of there. I thought if I'd taken 2, I was going to be like the 19 and was not going to win the race from that. Like it would have taken multiple cautions to do that. And I thought maybe I have the car good enough, top 2, top 3 car maybe, that I could potentially do it another way.
Bob Pockris, Fox Sports, you said before earlier today to me that you never been to the Champ 4. So do you have any idea what you're going to do the next 3 weeks?
I'm not going to be at the shop tomorrow morning. I can promise you that. That's not going to happen. Like it may be, I don't even know if I'll make the comp meeting at 3. I probably will. Yeah, I mean, I haven't been to the Championship 8 before this even, right? I hadn't been involved in that. I think the 12 was the furthest I went with Jones one year, in 19 maybe. So no, there's a plan in place. I know what I'll do. Like, I just wasn't sure that this was an option. Obviously, you put your plan in place and you go, okay, if I can win Vegas, then I'm going to work on Phoenix, right, for the next couple of weeks. And that gives us the luxury of doing it, but it's not the same as what it was when you were building the cars before, Now we can kind of like do some more loose sim work and do some things to get ahead for ourselves so that Phoenix week is a little smoother, really.
And what do you tell a guy who's been heartbroken so many times in this championship hunt, his first time going to the championship in the next gen car, on how to handle the next 3 weeks and how to handle Phoenix?
Well, I'm hoping he's going to help me with that a little bit, right? Like he's a mature guy, like he's been through all that, right? I haven't been there, obviously. What will I tell him? That we're going to do everything we can, and we're going to leave it there in Phoenix, and whatever happens, happens. And then we're going to do everything we can on the front side to get ready. But I don't know that I have the magic formula for his heartbreak related to that, other than trying to bring the fastest car I can, which is kind of how I've approached all year. I haven't necessarily gotten into mind games and what's happened before. And when he sat down with me in the off season, he mentioned 60 wins. He mentioned trying to get to the championship 4. He never once said championship. Obviously, you elevate, your mind and what you think you can accomplish as you go further along into the year. And we've had such a good year that we feel like we should be a front runner for the championship. But I don't think it's going to change what we do. We're going to take it a week at a time and a few weeks ahead on Phoenix, and that's about it.
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Chris, can you, talk about his dedication or how he's still involved? I mean, this is a sport where people after 40, it passes them up. It hasn't passed him up. And I know there was the story about being in the sim this week.
Yeah, about 7.5 hours this week, right?
And that's way more than normal. What can you give me a sense from that perspective of I heard all the questions he brought in. What was his approach to that, and how might that have helped, and how is that a part of how he has the bigger success at this age when others maybe aren't?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just aware, right? And he knows that, this was the round that mattered, right, to get into the championship 4. And the other ones, right, we had enough car speed, we had enough points advantage. Like, unless we have something get really derailed, we should do that, right? So I feel like he just came in this week, specifically at Vegas, that's a track that's been hit or miss for him, and came in with ideas that he thought what the car would and wouldn't do for him in the past and things they've done. And so, it started out as a Monday sim session, which we typically don't do week of stuff on Mondays, but, the comp meeting ended. Vegas was an early load. We needed to load and leave first thing Wednesday morning, so we wouldn't get to our normal sim session on Wednesday before we shipped the car. So we decided to just jump ahead, and we got in there, and one thing led to another, and we started talking about that, and we were running sim stuff, and it was 4.5 hours in or whatever. It's 7:30, and we're like, oh crap, we got to stop. And so I think that's just shows the level of dedication that he's got to this and how bad he wants it, right? I kind of snickered at one point. We were talking about the balance of the car there, and he was talking about I just needed a different driver or whatever, right, during the race. But I think, you saw the end of that race. I think you saw how much he really wanted it, right? Like he pretty much decided to go get it those last 12 laps of that race, on the outside around Larson. So I couldn't be more proud of him and his dedication to it. And just, believing in himself, because I think that's the first thing you could see. He was pretty emotional in victory lane, and it was like the one thing I just know is he can do it. He's just got to believe in himself. He's capable of doing it, and I think we'll just take that approach to Phoenix.
And can you, so you talk about the last 12, the end of the race. I can see certain things, but I'm not behind the closed doors like you. So what were the things that you saw? What are the things that you see when he does those things at the end of this race? And what stood out to you that maybe only you or your team members can see that I can't, or maybe most of those sitting in the stands aren't going to immediately recognize?
I think just being aggressive going to the top, right? He had committed to getting huge runs, and he was obviously using a lot more of the tire than he would if it was going to be a 40-lap race, right? So you could compare to previous runs early and watch where he was getting in the throttle, and he was definitely more aggressive than you normally, right? Denny's known for being the guy who's saving tires and not doing that, but he definitely flipped the switch when he needed to there and went as hard as anybody did, right? And I think that's the big thing that we saw that normally you don't see out of him, right? But once he got into third and he realized that he had a fast enough car to do it, he was able to close it out.
KellyCrandallRacer.com. Excuse me. Chris, first off, you've been asked many times this year, what has all this meant, the wins, the way this team has performed this year. Can you now, I know it's still fresh, but just put into perspective all of this now and getting to at least the championship race, which some in this sport have said that's maybe the bigger accomplishment with this format than winning the championship.
Yeah, you just mean my perspective alone?
Yeah, what all of this means to you.
It means a lot to me. I don't know that I could have scripted this part of it any better. I think I mentioned, in the off season, we talked about 60 wins and what's he had 3 wins or something the last couple of years. I'm thinking to myself, man, this is a great opportunity for me, but I got to step up and win right away. I think we've talked about this earlier, right, with the Martinsville win. And, I'm thinking 2-3 wins, okay, let's get that going. And then, I think it just gets steamrolling where you realize that you reset your expectations each time. Because it's been an incredible year for me. We've talked about this. I've been with rookies. I've been with lots of young guys and kind of watching that, watching them mature, but not in the position to be able to go and have a season like this where you just capitalize on a lot of them, whether it's staying out on tires at Dover. You just get yourself early wins, and then you can be aggressive in certain spots to where you go and stack those wins where maybe they were coin flips before if you'd had to play them different without a win. So for me, it's been amazing, and I'm trying to enjoy it, right? I'm 23 years into the sport, 24 years into the sport. I kind of laughed. The pit crew guys, we have a pit crew meeting on Tuesday mornings, and each week they have a guy come in and tell them kind of it's one of the pit crew members, their life story, how they got to Joe Gibbs Racing, how they got to the race team. And it was my turn last week. And I kind of gave them my whole transition from being a kid, 12 years old, all the way to Joe Gibbs Racing and where we are today. And I thought about that on the way in this morning. I thought, 17-year-old Chris Gayle would have killed for this moment, to just be a part of it. And then to kind of sit here in victory lane after this, the one thing I've said is I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to just soak it in and enjoy the next 3 weeks, lay everything I can out for Phoenix and move on.
Gabe Hart loved that story, by the way. He mentioned that in victory lane. The second thing, as we look to Phoenix, Joe Gibbs Racing in the spring versus Joe Gibbs Racing in the fall when they've gone there trying to compete for a championship has been vastly different. So you coming in with this fresh perspective, can you change that, or how what do you take from what you experienced in the spring with Denny that you guys can carry over to the fall to give him a better shot than what he's had there in a championship race before?
Yeah, I don't know that any one person necessarily is going to change it. It takes a lot of things going on, but I think that the unique thing is the tire changing. Right? We had the option tire in the spring, and that's how we all ended the race on the option tire. That's a softer tire, and the left side's a little bit different this time, but that is the Martinsville tire. That is, a lot of the short track tires that we've run. So I feel like that's going to be different, allowing Denny to do a better job with managing that tire. So I think that's going to be what's different for us this time.
Before we roll into our next question, we've now been joined by Joe Gibbs, owner of Joe Gibbs Racing as well. So we'll take questions for both of them, and we'll come down here to Jenna next.
Hi, Jenna Friary, Associated Press. I was going to ask Chris, but since you're here, I'll ask you both. Denny's had this weird couple weeks where he's played a pivotal role in the ending of races. It's sort of changed who's in the field in some ways. How does he maturely get through that and continue to perform and not, let all of that distraction and noise just take away from it?
I would say that Denny, probably nobody has more going on in their life than Denny. But he has an amazing ability, I think, to kind of handle all of it. And, all the stuff that's going on in his life right now. I know that one of the things he shared there was his dad, and so that was emotional for everybody. I want to say thanks to Chris and his story. I had a chance to listen when he was going through his story this week. It's great to hear somebody's background and their dreams, and the fact that this is part of his dream, and it's a great point in his life. And so I just really appreciate it. I appreciate him. I appreciate Denny and all that we've been through in the years that we've been together. I think we're probably close to setting some kind of record because we've been together this long. So just really appreciate him. Like you said, he's got so much going on. Most of us would say, how does he handle that? And I'm probably one of those. But just really appreciate it. And it's a thrill for us to get a chance to go to Phoenix and be in the Final Four. And so just appreciate everybody on our race team. Last night was a big deal for us with Eric and Young Life. That was a huge deal for us too, because that's part of our ministry, and it was awesome. So just a great weekend. Appreciate Vegas. I had more hospitalities today. So many of our partners were here. And so we love coming here, love the fan base and everybody, and just had a great day.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that I've seen is I don't care what's going on. Like if it's whatever controversy last week, if it's lawsuit related, he'll walk into sim and he'll look at the screen and we'll talk for a second and he'll go, okay, it's time to go to work. And he'll put the work hat on. And I won't hear any of the other stuff. Not once have I heard any of do we have conversations about all that other stuff that's going on in his life? Not once. So I think he just does a good job of focusing on what the task at hand is in front of him. I've carved out this amount of time to do this. If he has some other times where we need to talk about other stuff, then that's private. That happens there, and we don't overlap the two. And I think that's just maturity, right?
Zach Sterniolo, NASCAR.com. Chris, first for you. Denny's accomplished a lot in the sport, but to hit 60 this year in particular required a new level compared to the past years in this car. From your perspective, why has this year been the year that everything clicked for him?
I really wish I knew. I think that probably things changing for him allowed a little different perspective for him where he felt like he had to be more a part of it and help. That's just my gut. He hasn't said that to me. I'm just watching, right? And I'm watching what he does and how he tries to be a part of it. But I'm also doing that without living through the previous experience. So I don't know for sure, but I know that whatever I've asked him to do, he's done it, never questions it. If we want to, cut something short, come back a different day and do it for a reason, he's like, yep, I'm all in. So I don't know, I wish I knew that magic part of it, other than it just seems to be working where we focus on the car. We listen to what he talks about. There's a little process in place, and we just kind of keep whittling on that and making it a little better each time.
Coach, for you, Denny hitting that 60-win milestone sets him into the top 10 all-time wins in the sport. What have you seen from, I mean, it's been 2 decades of him driving your cars now, from where he was entering the Xfinity Series those 20 years ago to where he is now. What have you seen from him that has allowed this kind of growth and success?
Honestly, I would say that probably one of the biggest changes in a personality is when Denny first came to us. He was so quiet. You had to try and get him to talk. And today, look at where he is today. And it's been so interesting to watch that, over the years. I think part of it is maturing. I do think one of the changes, too, is family and everything he's got going there with Jordan. But I think it's just one of those things where somebody matures, becomes a father, and takes on a huge responsibility, has his own race team and all of that, and probably causes somebody to actually change their personality. And certainly I think Denny's gone through one of the biggest changes of almost anyone I know.
Just curious, is 7 hours of sim going to become mandatory for Denny going forward?
Yeah, I don't know. They'll probably more than 7 hours for Phoenix, but we'll split it up over quite a few intervals and not do it all at one session probably.
It seemed towards the end of this race that he was, he was on fire. I mean, like as Larson said out there, he saw his line, he saw where he was going. There was just nothing he could do. He was overly determined to win this race. Did you get that sense over the radio and leading in?
Not necessarily over the radio, right? Denny's pretty quiet normally. I'll be surprised. You can, even talking to him outside of the car, you don't get a whole lot of, excited reactions, or at least not, I don't anyway. So was I surprised? No. I just hadn't seen him be that aggressive, and I think that's what I was proud of. Like that's all the talk about, not being good at Vegas, needing a different driver at Vegas. Well, when the chips were down, he definitely realized he had the opportunity right there and he needed to seize it and did a good job, of that one. He sure was definitive with his moves, right? He pretty much grabbed Larson's right rear quarter panel right off the bat. And I think once he had that, he was in good shape.
Jonathan Field, the racing experts, for you, Coach, just what have you seen out of Denny this year compared to previous years? It seems like he's a lot more determined, a lot more focused. What have you seen out of him?
Well, I think Chris would probably tell you, and watching him, he's always had a great work ethic, I feel like. And so I think he's just determined. And probably what comes with that is so many years and so many great wins, but also the disappointments and not being able to win a championship. I think he's really been determined and after it. So, and it takes so much. I always talk about our sponsors, AM, PM on the car, and certainly our key sponsor is Toyota, for them to be with us over this period of time and for us to have a chance to go to the Final Four with them. It's just a huge deal. To see the partners, our sport is so different because we can't race without partners. I call them partners, not sponsors. And certainly we've got some great ones. And so I just appreciate all that. Everybody, if you go through as many years as we've been through with Toyota, you go through some good times, you go through some tough times, but that's what really tests a partnership. And they've always been so good. Whatever happens, if we go through a downtime, it's just, hey, let's go to work, let's fix it. And so they've been a great partner. So I just appreciate all those. It's one thing to kind of love it and celebrate it ourselves and Chris, but it's to see all those people that go with you. That's what's really fun. I was in the winner's circle calling sponsors and thanking them, and it's just great to those guys gamble, come with you, and spend a lot of their resources to support the race team. And to be able to call them from the winner's circle is just a huge deal.
I've got one for each of you. For Chris, can you guys long pitted, and you pitted with like 50 to go. You're the last playoff car. So it's going to give you somewhat fresher tires. Did you think that was going to be enough to get through the field, or what were you trying to do there?
Yeah, so we had cords on tires. And this was going to be the longest stints that anybody had run all day, within a couple laps if you evenly split. we were in position where I think we were fourth at the time, and I think the 20 had just gotten around us. So there were 3 cars that I couldn't short pit and grab them unless I wasn't going to come that early, knowing I couldn't make it on tires, potentially on this back half of the run. And then once those guys had started pitting so early, I think the 19 started the cycle maybe, they had started pitting so early. At that point, they're just planning on a late caution, right? And we're going to come back to pit road, and they're probably not going to be able to run the full 55 laps or whatever they have to do. Probably not without cords that they're going to really fall off, right? So at that point, I didn't think I had a shot to win the race by playing the same strategy as everyone else. So I was going to go closer to even split, make both runs really even and not fall off at the end, where if it went green, some of these guys were going to go 55 and hopefully tank from cording one tire or another tire. And that was going to be the play to try to get us the win. You know, obviously the caution came out early, and then we had the bad a 12.5-second pit stop that moved us further back. So then we were further away from those guys when it happened. So it kind of nulled out that potential advantage if it had gone green.
These were the Kansas tire. I mean, the newer intermediate tire that was
Yeah,
wearing more. Okay.
Yep. Same as Kansas for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Coach, putting Denny with Chris had to be, I mean, not a tough decision, but you have a veteran driver and starting over with anybody at that point in their career, it seemed like it's tough to build chemistry, or it can be, but now Denny's, you know, he's gotten faster on Saturdays for one thing. It seems like they unload really fast. He's obviously has a bunch of wins. Is this better than you could have dreamed it working out with this pairing that you put together here?
Well, you certainly would worry about that, and for sure. And that was kind of a tough time there. And Denny worked through it with us, and Chris did too. Chris had opportunities there, and he chose to, you know, stay with us. We really appreciate that. And so that was something that we kind of felt like was best for our race team, but it was also, in some ways, hard to go through it. So I just appreciate the way that team has fought. Chris has led them. Denny's been all in on it, and they make something special out of it, and certainly today was special.
Coach, this one's for you. You mentioned earlier that you were in conversation with your sponsors during the winner's circle. Could they hear you above the chaos?
It's hard, but I think I just scream. So, so it's great for me to get a chance to speak with them, because, you know, the chief marketing officer for AM/PM, I said, you made one of the best deals anybody's made, because that thing is going to be all over the new media tomorrow, and we're celebrating here. So it's great to see that happen. Something like that, where somebody comes with you, and just really appreciate that in every way. For me, is a huge deal.
Is AM/PM up for the first time?
No, they
Second race.
But it is just the second race, so it was great.
Chris, Fox Sports. Joe, what do you tell Denny before Phoenix, considering that he's a guy who's 0 for 4 in the championship and has done everything he's ever wanted to accomplish in this sport except win a championship?
Yeah, what would I tell him? Yeah. Yeah, actually, to be quite truthful, over here, the coaches are right there, the crew chiefs. So they'll do most of the talking and planning and all of that. Obviously, Denny knows there is a huge part of racing that is not the competitive part of it. You know what I mean? So it's sponsorship, working through things with Denny. That's kind of where I am. But I think when you go this long with somebody, we've gone through a lot together, you know, negotiating contracts, disappointments, all the things that's happened. And I think when that kind of happens in a partnership and a relationship, you grow stronger and stronger if you can get through it. And so I just think for him, there won't be a lot of talking about it, because he knows everything's at stake in this. This has been his life. This is all he's wanted to do, is race cars. And when JD found him, and I really thought last night with Young Life, JD was huge in Young Life, and that's part of the reason why we're working with that ministry. But when JD found him, racing late models, JD gets a lot of the credit because he put Denny in a test, he put him in a truck, he put him in an Xfinity car, and finally he said to me, I think we need to sign this guy. And so that's part of it too. I just really appreciate that, and the fact that JD's memory and everything kind of lives on. Denny put JD over the door with his name, and Denny's kid, his little boy now is JD. So all of that, it gets emotional, really. I think the race at Daytona after JD went to be with the Lord it is, for me, the greatest sporting event I was ever in for our family and everybody. And I think God's hand was on that race. And so Denny's a big part of that history with JD too.
Coach, you made it a little easy for me by bringing up JD. You have two Hall of Famers in Bobby and Tony. Dale Jarrett technically drove for you, is in the Hall of Fame. When JD brought you Denny, did you have any idea? He's your winningest driver at 60 wins. I mean, did you have any idea that this late model kid from Virginia was going to turn into this, what he has for you?
I got to be no. I did not. I got to be honest. You know what I mean? And really, if you remember that year, we actually were struggling with the car, the FedEx car. And so halfway through, he only ran a half a year in Xfinity, which is amazing. And so we put him in there kind of as an experiment. And I think the third race, he stayed on a pole. He was gone. And so he deserves a lot of credit in that. But, I appreciate you mentioning JD there. It's a huge part of JD and Coy, both my boys. They're a big part of our history and everything that we're going to do going forward. I got grandkids now that just love it and a part of it. And I got to tell you, we love what we get to do, NASCAR, and getting a chance to go compete every weekend against great owners, great teams. I just love it. And hopefully we're always going to be in it, our family.